Always interested in having you at least once a month.
Thank you.
On my broadcast, because you do have some interest, some activity with prison reform, which is something I'm very interested in. And the other thing is we're in the same church.
Yes.
That's also important.
Yes.
So, how are you?
I am phenomenal by the grace of God. Thank you for asking, Deacon. And how are you?
I'm fine. I do very well when I drive. I find that I drive better than I walk.
Okay.
I tend to trip a little when I walk.
Sure.
And that has to do with some condition that I have, that I've had a number of years, but because of the other problems that we have in the country and in the world, I haven't really taken care of what that problem might be.
I understand. Well, it's a blessing that you are, that you're able to move around and that you're able to drive. Even.
Yes.
Still, that is a blessing.
Well, coming here for the broadcast, for the bookkeeping on Saturday, for the Sunday service, those 3 times are critically important to me to be able to do. So I'm pleased to. I thank God.
Amen.
To be able to do that 3 times a week.
Amen.
And I am, as I have mentioned before, on the Board of Trustees at the Condo Association,
right,
where I live. So I've got a couple of things that I'm doing.
Yes.
But
keep you busy.
But the driving is easier for me, and it's important to do because I live 16 miles away from my church. Yes.
And with driving today, it's interesting because, quite candidly, I need to get my license back so that I'm able to drive again. But as you navigate and you see just, people with road rage, now more than ever, and so the way that you're able to just keep calm and to navigate and feel safe and comfortable driving, even in this climate of people who are so aggressive, that doesn't give you any challenges whatsoever in terms of dealing with people's aggression and the road rage.
Well, I used to drive fast when I was working for the Commonwealth many years ago. But now I've decided that I'm just going to take my time.
Good for you. I'm
just taking my time. And there are people who have a kind of road rage, who pass me on the right, who pass me on the left, who, pass me right, left, and then, pass somebody else ahead of me. And if we have to stop for a red light, they're just ahead of me by one car.
How about that?
I mean, it's really they haven't
racing to get with you, not even going anywhere.
They haven't won anything, They think they have, but they haven't, and that's another interesting thing that happens when you drive, because I know that on the highway, when there are no red lights and there's just highway, there are people that are just sailing around, sailing on the right, sailing on the left, and in a big hurry. And why?
Right.
Where can they possibly be going that they have to, drive past me on the right or on the left?
Right.
Now, there used to be a rule about where you passed somebody when you were on the road.
Okay.
But I think some people have forgotten that rule.
I think so. I think so. So it's a blessing that you're able to navigate that and to navigate it, safely.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. And then whenever my son wants to go anywhere with me, he likes to drive my car, and I sit in the passenger side, and he drives my car.
Nice.
So because he likes to do that because he has a truck.
Okay.
and a motorcycle.
Okay. Okay. So this is a different vehicle for him to be able to drive.
It's different for him.
Nice.
And I'm perfectly happy to let him take us to lunch.
Yeah.
Take us someplace.
That's beautiful.
And it's just a wonderful thing because his wife, my other daughter, I call her my daughter Vicky. She cleans my condo.
Oh, beautiful.
Whenever she's in my unit, she cleans my condo while my son and I are going out someplace. We go shopping, we pick up something and bring it back, and she has cleaned my condo.
That is a blessing.
Yeah, she's a lovely person.
What a blessing.
She also does her father's unit where he lives.
Really?
Yes. Yes, so twice a year she cleans her father's unit. Twice a year she cleans mine.
What a blessing.
It is
You
wonderful.
are blessed. You're blessed. Deacon, our brother Terrence E. from Gray Sr., who tunes in faithfully, as you know, he is tuned in. And he's communicating blessings to all.
Good. Well, I love hearing from anybody that's watching and listening live. Yes, yes. Does he have anything he wants to add?
We'll see. So far, he has not as of yet.
Okay.
But we will see. I'll certainly, communicate that if he doesn't call in himself on the air, because certainly people can call in.
I know, but I also didn't want to forget that you were talking about restoring your own driving.
Yes.
License. Your driving license. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been too long. It's been some time. I mean, living in Boston, and driving is very expensive, quite candidly. So, because you have to pay for parking. And so, fortunately, you can get around in the city without driving your own vehicle because of public transportation and Lyfts and Uber and those things, but it's nothing like being able to have your own vehicle and go when you want to go, and so it's just time, and it's going to encompass a lot of excise tax and tickets and things that I've got to be able to take care of. So we're working on it slowly by slowly, but I'm looking forward to. In fact, you may not know this, but I actually used to have a Class 2 license. I used to drive bus like the the MBTA.
Oh.
So I used to drive those big buses.
Oh, great.
So I had a license to do that, but I allowed it to expire, and so now
that's interesting. So are you going to go back to that?
I don't know if we're going to go back to that level to the Class 2, but let's start with just getting my regular license back first. Yeah,
well, that's good. Well, I'll certainly pray for you because I know that you can do that well.
Thank you.
And it will probably not take you too long to get your license again.
Amen.
That'll be good.
Thank you, Deacon.
Yes, and very, very good. And I find that I don't have to pay for parking anywhere because I have a handicap parking card, and whenever I go anywhere, whether it's shopping or a place to park or a place, a medical place or wherever, I can park in a handicapped spot and put my card up in the right place, and I'm fine.
Yes.
And the registry recommends that I do that properly, and I do it.
Yes.
And they do allow me to get the benefit from it as well. So it works out fine with me.
That's great. Yeah, having the handicap, that helps a lot.
Yes, it does. It does, because it's really important for me, because parking at one end of the parking lot and walking a great distance to get to a building is a disadvantage for me.
Sure.
Because of the problem I have with walking.
Sure.
So this works very well that I have a handicap placard.
That is a blessing. You were just sharing with me, Deacon, off air, that you've been doing this work for some time, and that God's blessing you if He should spare you, that you'll be soon coming up to, I think you say 89.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Well, I don't usually announce my age over there.
I just think that's phenomenal.
But you know what? But I think that's okay because I'm not offended by it, Pastor. Trust me. But when I tell people my age, they say, "No, you're not."
Right.
And I say, "I wouldn't lie to you about my age. I'm just telling you how old I actually am." And they say, "You can't be that age because you don't look that age."
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just such a blessing that you're able to, your mental capacity, your physical ability, and that you're able. So it's just such a blessing and a testimony that God has kept
Absolutely.
you to be high functioning.
And last year I had cancer again for the third time in my life, and God blessed me and to recover.
Amen.
So I'm blessed.
Yes.
Always.
Yes.
I have really been pleased the way that God has allowed me to recover and to tell people the truth.
Yes.
Even if they say, "No, you're not." It's so funny. It's so funny, but it works out fine.
It's a blessing.
Yeah, it is fine.
Really is. It is a blessing.
And I'm actually, and I tell Pastor Bruce that I'm the oldest active member of the church.
Really?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're doing okay.
That is a blessing.
Yeah.
That is a blessing. We're so pleased that that God has kept you and is keeping you.
Yes, and I'm pleased to be able to come here on a regular basis too. Yes, that's important.
Amen.
So whoever is listening to us really needs to be encouraged by that, because I hope that they can come to service as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, if you can do it.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. That's right.
What is their excuse?
Yeah, right. There is no excuse. Yes. So tell me, what have you been doing with
in terms of prison reform work?
Prison reform work, yes, because we've talked about it before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, as you know, we have been blessed to be able to file legislation at the State House.
Right.
It's MAH 4140 is the legislation number, and it is legislation to establish a pilot program relative to furthering voting access for incarcerated persons.
Right.
And so it's in the Election Laws Committee. It has, I believe, passed the House and is now got willing will go through the Senate, and then the governor will sign it into law. The good news is that there's several pieces of legislation. So the ballot box initiative is specifically for the Nashua County Jail and the Suffolk County House of Correction.
Right.
And so that's a very specific, aggressive pilot program to build infrastructure for returning citizens to exercise their right to vote. And I'll tell you that the Assistant Sheriff Goulard at the Nashua County Jail, where everybody who's at the Nashua County Jail is waiting pre-trial.
Right.
All of them.
Yeah.
So everybody's eligible who's at that facility. And the capacity is up to 500 people to be housed at the Nashua County Jail. So up.
Yeah. And I know that once they are given this opportunity to be able to vote, that we want to be sure that once they are cut loose and are free, that we want them to remember to vote wherever they're living.
Of course. Of course.
A few people have kind of forgotten that.
Sure.
Because they were so excited about being free that looking for a job, looking for a place to live, that they didn't really pay too much attention to the voting once they were out. But I want to encourage people to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And I should say that the pilot, also has a component in it that puts in place folks to also so when they come out of incarceration, it's one thing to be able to vote while they're there, as they're specially qualified and don't have to register. They can just do it via absentee ballot, so that we register them to vote at their respective places, or encourage them to do that. So kind of having that infrastructure in place, that so they can not make sure that the infrastructure is in place that they can exercise the right they already have while they're incarcerated, but get the education and support around, as you said, once they're released, that they will also know how to vote in their respective place where they live, where they come from.
Exactly, because I know that several times I went with you into both of these facilities to encourage people to register. And you brought applications, and we also gave them the opportunity to what's the other one?
The absentee ball?
The absentee ballot, right.
Yes.
And that's important.
Yes.
That is really something that that they really were shocked.
Yes.
Some of them were shocked to know that they actually had the ability to have an absentee ballot.
It's true. And that education, so many people inside and outside did not know that returning citizens in the state of Massachusetts are specially qualified, meaning that they can vote via absentee ballot. Meaning, and so that's a special provision. So that education is something that we constantly have to do inside the facility, outside of the facility. Because even the Elections Laws Committee, quite candidly, I found it amazing that the Election Laws Committee, they didn't even know it. How are you the head of a committee and we're telling you they didn't even know they didn't know they had the right to vote while they're incarcerated?
I know, and I can remember that when I was in there, getting people who were incarcerated but not hadn't been court sentenced.
Yes.
But I was talking with them about that the correctional officers were standing behind me, and they were saying, "How are you telling those guys that? I didn't know they could do that." I mean, the correctional officers were shocked that what we were doing was correct.
That's right.
They didn't think it was possible.
That's right.
Yes.
That's why this ballot box initiative is so important, because there's education and there's infrastructure. So you almost have to opt out to not participate in your exercising your right to vote with this initiative, because the ballot box will be a mobile box that goes from unit to unit. And one of the wonderful things in the process of us passing this legislation, now there is a drop box in the Nashua County Jail, as well as the Suffolk County House of Correction. This is unprecedented. Never happened before this past election for our mayor. They were actually able to cast their ballot up until 8 p.m. on election day. Again, given a correctional officer or a caseworker or whomever from the inside is able to get that ballot from them. Once it's, even if they fill out an absentee ballot application and they've been mailed a ballot, for it to get from their hand into the lobby, it's going to take access from a correctional officer or a staff. And so
and the education is expanded not only to the people who are incarcerated, but also the people who are working there.
Absolutely.
The education is passed on.
Absolutely.
It's very important. Very important.
So we're really excited about the ballot box initiative. State Representative Nika L. Ugardo is the person who wrote the legislation, and she worked with Sheriff Tompkins' legal team. So we were in concert while we were crafting the language in the bill, and she educated me, because this is the first piece of legislation I've ever had the opportunity to help to advocate for hearing the need, understanding the concept, but not knowing how to put that in language that is legislative language for policy. That's one thing, but also understanding the politics of how to be. So many times we rush to be able to pass a bill, but then we've got to go back and be able to tweak the language because it didn't really do, or we haven't worked in concert with the respective parties that we're not on the same page.
Right. Or we have to work out a way for you to actually deal with it.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. And you mentioned Tompkins, the sheriff, because he's always been so willing to allow people like you and me and other volunteers to come into his facility and do this kind of thing. That's because that is not the case with other sheriffs.
Absolutely not.
There are other sheriffs who say, no, stand back, don't come here.
That's true.
But he always allowed us to come in. I can remember that when people who were able to sit out in the area with other people who were incarcerated, that we could talk to them, we could sit down with them, we could have them read something, write something. But I also know that if there were individuals who were still incarcerated in their cell, that I was allowed to go to the cell, knock on the door of the cell, and tell the person who was inside what we were doing. That's extensive.
It is.
That is really extensive. And that's again something that
Sheriff
Tompkins allowed us to do.
It's true. Yeah. He has been extraordinary. One, he is the sole sheriff of color in the entire Commonwealth. And as a person, he understands, and he's been right here in this studio and articulated that he thinks it is unconscionable, I think was his language, to not allow a person who's incarcerated to exercise their most precious franchise, the ability to vote. And so this is a sheriff who has a mindset that understands that this is a right that they're entitled to.
I know.
And so because he understands that, he works aggressively to be able to allow us to come in and now to help us to craft this legislation and move it forward. And he also has brought in candidates into the House of Correction and had forums so they can make an informed decision. I know that they're working on being able to do, because this year is the election for our governor as well as for sheriff. So as I started to say before, the assistant sheriff at the Nashua County Jail, Sheriff Goulart, he is so excited about what we've been doing at the Nashua County Jail that he has a vision to do, just as we do elections you have election day, to have an election day inside the House of Correction, so that we have polls. I mean, just like you go and so to make it a whole ordeal and so we can get excited about election day, voting in the House of Correction on election day at Nashua County. So he has a vision, and if this is the sheriff, the assistant sheriff, who came up with the vision, then I feel confident that it will be one that can be implemented, because it's not one we're trying to impose. It's one he conceived as a result of us doing this important work and him agreeing it's so important. He said, let's take it to another level and let's institutionalize like an election day event for all who are in here.
I know, and it's not just an event that is like a fun thing. It's really much more important. And it really gives the person the opportunity to learn about their right where they're sitting in the jail.
Yes.
And that is critically important. And again, I'm just very grateful that Sheriff Tompkins has. I mean, I've spoken with him in a few places, and he has always allowed me to say what I wanted to say and talk about what I wanted to talk about and be where I wanted to be. And he has never refused to allow us to be in his facilities.
Yes.
That's amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So we certainly lift up the work that he is supporting in terms of even prison reform.
Right.
They've done an outstanding job in addition to being able to address COVID at those respective institutions.
Right.
And so that's what we're working on. We continue working on that piece of legislation, but there are other pieces of legislation that we're working with. The Democracy Behind Bars Coalition is a Voting Rights Act, a larger piece of legislation that is making very good progress moving through the State House as well.
Right. So we're I think we should encourage people listening to make contact with the people that they have elected.
Yes.
To get information from them and encourage them to do this. To make sure that this thing goes forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Deacon. Yes, please do. Your state representatives, your senators, those your elected officials, that you would reach out to them and encourage them to support and pass this ballot box initiative, MAH 4140. Specifically, that's the ballot box initiative.
Right.
But also these other pieces of legislation that is working on making sure that returning citizens have the things in place, including housing. Some of the packages are looking at being able, as you know, that's the biggest thing that's coming out of incarceration, to be housed.
Right.
And so some of the pieces of legislation are looking at being able to earmark resources to make certain that housing happens for returning citizens.
Right. Well, I mean, we just probably some people may have watched the information that was done when the people who were living in tents on a street in Boston were asked to move, were asked to leave the spot where they were. And that was, I mean, they had been there for a long time. And now the new mayor wanted to make sure that they were in a better place. They were in a place where they actually had a bed to sleep in, and there was a place that they could shower, and a place that they could eat, and that was important. And I think, as a matter of fact, I think she's going to be speaking again today at 10 o'clock.
Oh.
Michelle Wu.
Oh, really?
Yes. The mayor.
Okay.
Yes.
So she's going to be speaking today to the city.
I think that she's speaking while we're speaking.
Oh, okay. We'll have to find out what she's saying after the fact.
Yes.
Well, I know that with the pandemic that she had lifted the vaccination passport that was being required for you to be able to enter into facilities, restaurants and gyms and things of that nature, because the metrics have been met, all three, in terms of incidence or positivity rate, ICU beds, and there was another marker. So she's got three metrics, and I appreciate that that's what it is. And she was saying, if these are good, then I'll lift them, because other places across the country and cities are saying we're tired and we're going to lift it, but it can't be. I don't think it should be a thing of us just being tired.
Right.
It's, what does the science say? Is it safe?
Exactly.
Even though we may be all frustrated with the mask and social distancing and vaccinations and boosters and those kinds of things, it's important that we're vigilant, because it's not gone away. There's still variants of this, and people. So I appreciate that she's been really intentional and methodic, and that it's been the metrics. And as soon as those metrics were met, she immediately lifted that you still have to wear a mask on the inside, but you don't have to show proof of vaccination to be able to go into various places. And quite candidly, my understanding is that she has been, has had death threats. They protested at her private home. I mean, really, it's unprecedented, the pushback I feel that she's gotten. And I believe it's because of a number of things, because she is Asian, because she is a woman.
She's also black.
Yes.
She's half and half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so for those reasons, I think that's the reasons why there's such pushback. But she's doing, I think, extraordinarily well in terms of being able to navigate and to push through and to be positive in spite of, and to lead with just extraordinary leadership in spite of all that she inherited and all that she's getting as a result of being the first.
I know. And the thing is that she used to be an intern for Mayor Menino.
Yes.
And I think she worked for him for something like 8 years.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it isn't that she's inexperienced.
Not at all.
She has a great deal of experience about what a mayor needs to do.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's really important for people to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So yes, I think with the situation with Mass and Casa, what I call Miracle Mile, and she really aggressively, as she talked about in her campaign, said that would be one of her priorities, is to address this crisis that was really just, out of control. Active addiction, drug sales, and all kinds of abuses and violences that are happening as people are just caught in this despair. But she aggressively has addressed it. I haven't been over to that area most recently, unfortunately. So I haven't seen, if there's, because people, like you said, they've been there, even if they've moved them, some to the Round Hotel, not far from there, and other places. I'm hopeful that, again, the services are in place, because that's what's important. It's great to be able to give them housing and a bed and like you said, a shower and those kind of conditions.
I know, but but some of the folks that were abusing drugs really need to make an adjustment too.
Yes.
I mean, there's more to it than just moving.
Absolutely.
There's work that needs to be done.
Yes.
And actually, counseling was offered to them, and there's a number of people who are providing support, so it's possible for them to succeed.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. So, do you know anything else with
prison reform?
Prison reform?
Yeah. Well, we had talked a little bit offline, and I am really pleased to hear that our governor, Baker, actually commutated 2 individuals whom were in and had life sentences.
Right.
So I think that's worth talking about, because it's the first time this has happened in 25 years here in the state of Massachusetts. So that's huge, and hopefully that will set the tone now for people to consider allowing people who are in prison for life, to really look at those cases and see, what people did and what they've done post being incarcerated. I think it was great to hear that unanimously the Governor's Council, again, another council or administration that we may not be familiar with all of its preview and what it does.
Right.
But here we see that the Governor's Council had unanimously made the decision to commute both of these individuals. And when I heard one of the people who said the reason why they did it is not because excusing what the person did that got them incarcerated, but celebrating and acknowledging what they did for the 30 years that they were incarcerated, that they served their time, they've improved themselves, and now they deserve an opportunity to be a productive, contributing citizen in society.
Right, and they would be encouraged to register to vote.
Absolutely.
Yes, I want to be sure and say that.
Yeah, and and it's interesting you say that, because it's true, because that happened because of the elected governor, interesting enough, whom happens to be a Republican in a place that's strongly been Democratic. So it's not Democrat or Republican.
I know it.
It's about the leadership.
This is presumably a blue state.
Presumably, yes.
And with because I've known Charlie for a number of years, because he worked, he was in charge of the money before he became the governor.
Oh.
And he was also... he was very involved with people and what was going on in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And so his becoming governor was not such an impossible attempt for him, because he really knew what he was doing. He knew what he was talking about. He knew what he was doing, and he could manage it. And he's been doing it. And he was voted for a second time, but then he decided he was not going to run a third time.
Correct.
So he's decided to make sure that he wanted to do some things before he left.
Yes, and so I celebrate.
And this is one of those things.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's huge that the Governor's Council commute first-degree murder sentences for the first time in 25 years.
It's amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing. It really is. So I'm very pleased that Charlie did that.
I am too. I really am, and watching that and seeing the support. I believe it was a football player, one of the Patriots.
Yes. I think maybe he was related to.
I don't think he was related. I think he just really understood the importance of supporting this particular individual, and advocated for him, and so that helped.
Right.
When you've got people whom can advocate for you.
Right.
And I actually have the article here, and it's saying Thomas Kuntz, that's one of the gentlemen, speaking to the Governor's Council about the day of the shooting of the commutation hearing before the Governor's Council. He was a U.S. Marine, served 30 years in prison, and it says that the Governor's Council on Wednesday commuted the life without parole sentence for 2 prisoners convicted of first-degree murder, making them eligible for release and reopening potential path to freedom for others who make extraordinary strides behind bars.
That's incredible. That's the part that you were just referring to.
Yes.
And
so it says, in a unanimous vote, the 8-member board granted Governor Charlie Baker's request to reduce the sentence of Thomas Kuntz, 54, and William Allen, 48, from first to second degree murder after scrutinizing the nature of their crimes and their efforts to better themselves during several decades in prison. I hope this is the dawn of a new era where clemency is more common, said Councilor Paul DiPaolo, adding that the commutation should provide hope in places where it's very hard to come by.
Exactly. So they must have been doing some very positive things while they were incarcerated.
Yes. Yeah, they spoke about all the things that they did. Councilor Mary Hurley said the commutations mark a new era, quote unquote, and her vote to grant them was not based on the crimes that they were convicted of, but about what they have done with their life since then. That's the one I was just referencing.
Yeah, the other thing is, and I don't know that you've ever been in any of the state facilities, which I have.
No, I haven't.
I've been in every one of them.
Wow.
In the Commonwealth. But there's a library, a legal library in every state facility.
Okay.
And a lot of the people who are incarcerated have an opportunity to earn the right to go into the library and learn something for themselves.
Yes.
And so I know that there were a couple of people who were incarcerated who actually earned a law degree. Yes. So that was another thing that people who were incarcerated learned how to do that was better for themselves than what got them there in the first place.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I hear of so many of people who are incarcerated who learn to advocate for themselves.
Yes.
And ultimately earn, as you said, a law degree.
Right. They've also been able to learn enough about law to be able to help people that they knew that they were serving time with.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that's been happening that people are unaware of. Yes.
Including to your point, Andrea James, who I met right here on your broadcast,
right,
who was formerly incarcerated and is a lawyer, and now has a whole organization, a national organization, particularly addressing prison as it relates to women.
Right.
And she's doing a whole campaign on a moratorium on building new prisons, because apparently that was, potentially something that they're looking at, and to the tunes of, I don't want to say the amount, but lots of money, to build another woman's prison, as opposed to taking all that money that you're going to earmark to build another prison to create programs.
I think they
decided not to.
They've already done that in the western part of the state.
Built the prison
for the women.
Oh,
yes,
really?
Yes.
They've already built
There's
it.
some facility for women in the western part of the state.
That's newly built.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's because there are people that are, I mean, just because someone is in a local prison or a jail, and then is released and goes to a shelter, doesn't mean that they came from Boston. It just means that might be the only place they were able to be.
Sure.
And there's a number of people that came from the middle part of the state, the western part of the state, the part of the state close to New Hampshire, close to Rhode Island. And people need to know more about how they can find out where they can live that they came from, and where they might get jobs where they came from as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As I'm reading further in this article here, and as you were talking about people earning degrees while they're incarcerated, these two gentlemen that we're referring to that got their commutations, it says that Alan has earned a master's barber license, became a Eucharist minister and a volunteer in the Catholic community, and worked in the Bridgewater State Hospital companion program, providing care for patients with severe mental illness, as well as the other gentleman. Kuntz has earned a degree from Boston University while in prison, and he participated in numerous rehabilitation and restorative justice programs and mentored, again to your point, other inmates.
Right. Yes, and this has been important for a small number, not a majority of people who are incarcerated, but a small number of people who are incarcerated who want to help themselves by helping others. And that is happening, and that's been happening over a number of years that I've been aware of for a number of years.
Yeah.
So, because I've used to go into the prisons in the 70s. In the 70s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been a while. It's been a while since I've gone in recent. I haven't gone in since Charlie became governor, but I definitely was in up to the point of his becoming governor.
It also says here in this article that Baker, as you already articulated, who's not seeking re-election and has a year left in office, said that he intends to weigh clemency petitions on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
And that considering a commutation for crimes such as murder should be rare.
Right.
A commutation reduces an inmate's sentence, paving the way for immediate release or parole eligibility, while pardon erases a conviction.
Right.
So that's an interesting distinction between the pardon and the commutation.
I know. But this is, again, this is legal information.
Yes.
This is learned in the law library.
Yes.
This is learned from people who have been elected, who are working on passing a law with their name on it. That's a lot of differences that are available that people, many people who don't care about prisoners don't want to bother to know about them. But the fact of the matter is, every prisoner, those in the jails and those in the state facilities, their coverage is by way of taxes. Our taxes pay for them. So if you are listening to the broadcast and you say, I don't care about people who are incarcerated, guess what? If you are paying your taxes, you should care about those who are incarcerated.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's something you may not have never realized.
That's right. That's right. You're right. You're absolutely right. No, one thing I find interesting about this particular situation with these two gentlemen being commuted is that it says in 2010, the prosecutor who won Kuntz's conviction testified at the commutation hearing that the case bothered his conscience because he didn't believe the evidence supported a first-degree murder conviction. He said he was concerned that Kuntz did not receive a fair trial because his lawyer failed to question prospective jurors about racial bias. Although he had done so at the first trial, Kuntz, apparently it was Kuntz told police he feared for his life and fired in self-defense, meaning to scare off the crowd with a warning shot.
Right.
His first trial ended with a hung jury in 1992. An all-white jury convicted Kuntz, who was black. And again, this lawyer, who was a prosecutor, he's saying it bothered him because he felt that it wasn't fair, that he wasn't, the evidence did not support first-degree murder.
Right.
And so he was able to testify to support him in being commutated because he didn't believe that it's what it should have been in any event.
Isn't that amazing? To me, to me what that sounds like is education.
Yes.
It's just additional education for someone who is a prosecutor,
Yeah.
who learned something that they didn't know before.
Yes.
Yes.
And kudos for him for being able to, one, acknowledge I didn't know it. And I saw it and I felt my conscience convicted me to the degree that I'm going to use my voice now to help commute your sentence because it shouldn't have been that in the first place.
Right, right. So, I mean, it's, as I said, it's education.
I mean, isn't a jury supposed to be a jury of your peers? How is it your peers if they're all white and you're black?
That's right. Well, and that was done years ago. It was, the majority was white.
Correct.
Yeah.
So thanks be to God for this. And this is not
Right.
kind of in the context of prison reform that I think of these various moving pieces and parts that we need people to be a part of. There's a gentleman who writes frequently from Walpole and is seeing so much that's happening that now has a passion to do prison reform upon his release.
Right.
And so because of what he's experienced. Let me see if this is a caller, Deacon. Boston President TV Network. Yeah, it was somebody trying to call. It's
Okay.
yeah.
All right. But as I said, if you don't care about prisoners and you don't care about prisons, but you pay your taxes, you are actually paying something like $60,000 per state prisoner.
Wow.
I'm not sure what you're paying for the jail at
Nashua.
Tompkins facility, but you know, there's some interesting things that people who might complain about something just don't know about something.
Sure.
And it's really important for them to pay attention to what we're talking about and what other people are talking about from this broadcast studio. Because the truth is told, Pastor Bruce encourages all of us to use the time to tell the truth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Brother Eric Kennedy is tuned in now, Deacon, and he's saying, good morning, family. He also says, a lot of colleges here in Boston are offering returning citizens a chance to get a degree or some type of certification.
I know, and years ago, Boston, the facility in Boston was offering an education to those people in Walpole who were incarcerated in Walpole.
Oh, really?
Yes, long time ago. Long time ago, but it was happening for multiple years, and then it was taken away from them. But right now, it's offered at a number of other places where people who are incarcerated can take courses from those other universities.
Wow. Wow.
It's very interesting.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really
Again, it's something else that if people are interested in learning and having an education about something that's legal, that's important, they can listen to us. They can call us and we'll tell them about it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Our time has elapsed, Deacon, once again.
Really?
Believe it or not.
Wow.
We're already at the
Well,
top.
I'm going to have to thank you for being the
It's
co-host
my privilege and pleasure.
and the engineer.
My pleasure.
And I will remind you that the second Wednesday of the month
Yes.
in March
Yes.
is the next time you should be on.
I look forward to it.
Okay, I'll see you then.
Thank you so much, Deacon.
Thank you again.
My pleasure.
I'll Talk to you all again next week.